Hello. So we're somewhat now close into making it look like a brace. So now let us try to connect these two parts. So to connect them, first I will delete these two faces. So right click and delete. And as you can see, it creates a hole. So I will first hide the body, the mesh body on the top left. Then before I connect these two together, I'm going to make it easier for Fusion. So I will double click that. I will click on edit form on the top. Then I will rotate this just to make it slightly easier for Fusion to calculate the position. I'll rotate it a bit this way. So the goal here is to make it as close as possible to the edge. Just to make calculations easier. Then I will stretch it to a bit. Alright. So be sure to rotate your camera a lot in this case. So that looks much nicer. I'll just move it a bit closer. Alright, that looks good. Click on OK. So I will select these two edges. Wait, before I select them, I'll go to the modify drop down and I will click on merge edge. So merge edge, we'll click these two. Then group 2 will be this one, so double click to select the entire edge and then I'll click OK. And as you can see, magically, they will connect together. So in form modeling, we want to avoid these because these are what we call parts that intersect with itself. Well, in this case, it hasn't intersected yet, but there's a good chance that it will in the future. So to fix this, what we can do is we can try inserting an edge. For example, I'll modify, insert an edge somewhere over here. Click on OK. Then I will move this around such that it looks a bit flatter. Okay, that looks quite good. Alternatively, you can also rotate. You can rotate your edges or vertices. So I'm gonna rotate this just to make it a bit smoother. There we go. Alright, that looks good. Alright, that looks great. Now, before we pull this portion towards the hand, we want to make sure that there's enough vertices for Fusion to calculate. Since the problem is, if there's too little vertices, some parts of our brace might go under the hand, which is what we don't want. So I will select the entire hand and I will right click or go to modify and click on subdivide. So it's not here, so it's under modify, subdivide. Select the entire object. Then I think 2 faces should be good enough. Let's make it 3 to be safe. Yep, that looks good. I'll click on OK. So as you can see, it adds a lot more faces. In this case, in the sharp edges, we don't want to add more, but I think that's fine. Okay, but if your computer begins to become a bit slow, you can use less faces. So I will make the body visible again. Then I will select the entire mesh and I will go to modify and I will click on pull. So pull. Then it might lag for a bit. Then as you can see, the entire part gets pulled to the surface. You can select between control points or surface points. Usually, control points allow for the mesh to retain its grids, but most of the time, a majority of the mesh may go under the surface. And of course, surface points is a bit better in this case because, of course, we don't want our prosthetic, our brace to go under the skin. So in this case, that looks much better. I will click on OK. Alright? So once we have done that, we have to double check for any parts of the mesh that might have went under. So I will hide the mesh body. Then the form looks fine. Okay. There are a few parts which we could fix, such as this. So to do so, I'm going to modify, and I'm just gonna pull this out. So I'll pull it further from the surface. Just to fix it later. Then I'm gonna reduce the gap here. Okay. I'll pull this vertex so it stops folding it in. There we go. So the goal is to reduce the amount of folds. In this case, that looks okay. Then again, I will unhide the mesh body. Then I will click on pull, but this time I'll only select certain points. So in this case, I'll select the points which are not exactly on the surface yet. So this one and this one. These two. Okay. That looks better. And I'll click on okay. Okay. So we want to fix the geometry a bit because that looks a bit messy. So I'll modify again. I'm going to move this in a better position alongside this one. And this one. Okay, just make it a lot, in this case, make the lines straighter. Because you don't want it looking weird. Okay, that looks good. Then again, I'll click on pull and select the vertices I want to pull towards the surface. In this case, I will not pull that first. So I'll deselect that. Okay. Okay, that looks nice. Okay, as you can see, this portion of the hand is now under, which is what we don't want. So in this case, I will first hide the body. Then we will insert an edge. So by inserting an edge, what happens is we add more points, right? And these points will allow us to pull it closer. So click on insert edge. I will select this edge. Then I will drag this over here. I'll do the same thing. So modify, insert edge to this section. Oh, yep, there we go. So I will select the entire body. Then I will pull. So pull, make sure that the hand is visible again. Then click on OK. Okay. That doesn't look too bad. Okay, let us see. So you can hide and unhide the hand to see if there's any part that's too much under the surface. In this case, there's one more part I want to adjust, which is over here. So I'm going to modify. I'll pull this out. Okay. Then I will pull it. So pull. Make sure the body is visible. So in this case, let's try using control points. So make sure that both bodies are visible. Modify, pull, control point. Let's see if I select this. There we go. So control points are a bit more conservative in the way they pull to the surface. So I will do that. Okay, click on OK. So that looks nice. I will try to do control points here too, but if it's not that under the body, I think it should be good. Okay, that looks good. Alright, now, before we can consider this done, we have to make the upper portion and bottom portion a bit more cleaner. But we're gonna do that in the next video. But so far, good job.